In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a round ball, or a sphere, if you will. Hi, I'm Heather and this is Hooking Wench Crochet. In today's tutorial, we're going to learn how to make this ball. Whether you want to use it as a dog toy, a cat toy, a hacky sack, you got a juggling act going on, I can't do it, but kudos to you if you can. Whatever reason you have for wanting to make a ball, I am here for you. For my beginners, this tutorial is going to show you how to do increases and decreases, as well as working in continuous rounds. So, without any more yakking from me, let's get hooking. For today's tutorial, you'll need worsted weight yarn. I'm using Perfection Worsted by Kramer in the color Elegant Gray. I got this from Thimbleberry Yarn and Craft in Whitehaven. If you're anywhere near the area, it's an excellent little shop. Just check it out. And they have the Kramer Perfection, which is an excellent yarn in a variety of colors. You need a 5mm crochet hook, a stitch marker. If you don't have a locking stitch marker like this, you could always use a paper clip, a safety pin, or a scrap of yarn in a different color. Just anything that'll stand out and help you see where your rows begin and end. You'll need polyfill or whatever it is you plan on using to fill your ball. Scissors for cutting off, and a darning needle for sewing our ends in. To start, we're going to make the magic ring. I know I have done this in previous tutorials, but I'm going to try to keep it slow because I know it can be very, very confusing. It took me a long time to get this. So, we'll take our yarn over these two fingers, the tail over here, wrap our working yarn around, crisscross it, bring it back behind that first loop, and back to where they crisscrossed. Pinch it with your thumb, flip it over. Wiggle your fingers a little, make sure it's not too tight on you. Put your hook under the first strand, grab the second strand, pull it forward, and twist it. Not too tight, no need to work with it. Pull your fingers out, hold that all together, hold that pinch, and wrap your working yarn over, pull through to chain one to secure it. Okay? Once you have that magic ring set up, you're going to do 6 single crochets into that ring. Now 6 is just for the size I'm doing in this example. If you want to start with the larger base, you can do more. You can do your ball whatever size you like, but for this example we're doing 6. Okay, so remembering that first chain one does not count as a stitch, we need to put 6 single crochets into our loop. The hook through the loop, yarn over with our working yarn, pull up through that loop, then yarn over and pull through both of the loops on your hook. That's 1 stitch. And back through your hoop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Got 3, I'm going to go 4, 5, and 6. Now we're gonna pull our tail to close our ring. keep it from getting twisted. Okay, so that's round 1 is done. Now for round 2, we're going to increase all the way around, which means we're going to put 2 single crochets into each one of those stitches. You're going to want to get your stitch marker or a piece of scrap yarn, whatever you're using to mark your rounds, ready to put into the first stitch so that you don't lose your place. Just go right through that stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and place your marker. Okay, and we're going to go right back into the same stitch that we just worked through. Over, pull through, and over, pull through both loops. Okay, and repeat that in every stitch around, so you should have 12 stitches when you're done. Okay, when you reach your marker, you have gone full circle and should have your 12 stitches. Now in the third round, we're going to put just 1 single crochet into our first stitch, do an increase into the next. I'll remove the marker, put in that first stitch, put the marker into that first stitch, now we're going to do an increase in the next, which means 2 stitches in that 1 stitch. Okay, and in the next stitch we do 1, and the stitch after that we do an increase. And then 1, and then an increase again all the way around. You should land on an increase because we started with just 1. Okay, so for our next round, we're going to do 1 single crochet in each of the first 2 stitches and then an increase. We will repeat this pattern all the way around. So do 1, making sure that we move our marker to our next round. 2, and then an increase. Now, if you watched last week's tutorial on how to make a flat circle, you're probably thinking, this feels kind of familiar, only we're not slipping to close our rounds. This is actually called working in continuous rounds. And it gives you more of like a spiral with a little notch thing going on at the end instead of the smooth closed rounds that a flat circle has. And the way we increase for a sphere is very similar to a flat circle, except at some point you have to start rounding out and making it, you know, turn into that bowl shape, start to ball out. So that's actually what we're going to start in the next round. Okay, so like I said, right now our project's very flat, similar to a flat circle, but with this little uneven notch here. So we're working in continuous rounds. But we don't want it to be flat. We're trying to make something three-dimensional. We're making a ball. So this next round is where we're going to start curving it out and giving it depth. We are just going to do 1 single crochet all the way around. And again, making sure we don't forget to put our marker in that first stitch so we know when we've completed the round. Okay, and we have reached the end of our round. You can see that edge is starting to curl up, starting to get a little dimension here. This next round we're going to increase again. So it's going to be 1 single crochet in each of the first 3, and then an increase into the 4th stitch. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. Our first stitch, and move our marker as always. 2 and 3, and do an increase. 1, 2, 3, and an increase. Okay, we've reached the end of our round and landing on an increase, of course. Okay. Now the next round, we're just going to do 1 single crochet all the way around again. Always remember to move your marker so you never lose your place. Okay. Next round is going to be our last increase round. We're going to do 4 single crochets, 1 in each of the first 4 stitches, and then an increase. And repeat around. So, 1. Remember to place your marker. 2. 3. 4, and an increase. One, 2, 3, 4, and increase. Repeat all the way around. Okay, once we work our way back to our marker, the next 3 rounds, we're just going to crochet around. Single crochets around. So work 3 rows of just 1 single crochet, and I'll meet you back here to show you how to decrease. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of that 3rd round of just single crochets around. And now, before I start decreasing, there is a decision to make. If you look at your project so far, your dome, you're halfway to being a ball shape here. You've got a very smooth side on one side, and one side where the stitches are more defined. And you have to decide which one of those sides is going to be on the outside of your ball and which one is going to be on the inside. It's entirely up to you which one is your right and wrong side, in your opinion. You know, these more defined stitches, it almost looks more like if you're going to fill this with lentils, make it like a hacky sack, this looks more like that style to me. But that's a very soft, smooth looking side. It's not bad looking, so it's up to you entirely which side you want where. I recommend whichever side you make your inside, you put your tail to that side before you start stuffing, which we will do soon. So if it's on the side you want it to be or outside, just use your darning needle to move it before you stuff. Okay. Now, the top side of our circle started in the smallest point in the middle and expanded out. Now we're at the widest point of our ball, and we have to retract down to the center of the opposite end of the bottom. In order to do this, we need the top and bottom to be symmetrical, otherwise it will not be round. So we want to do the exact opposite of what we did here. Our last row of increases was 4 single crochets and an increase. That means our first row of decreases is going to be 4 single crochets and a decrease. So we take our marker out, put in our first single crochet, put the marker back so we don't lose our spot. Two, 3, and 4. And now we have to decrease. Now, when decreasing, you stitch 2 stitches together. You can do this by going through the full stitch, pull through, and leave those 2 loops on, go through the next full stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then you have 3 loops on your hook, you yarn over and you pull through all 3. However, in some projects, I don't see one here. This one looks good and smooth. But in sometimes when you do that, you'll get a gap. Depending on the yarn you use or how tight your stitches are, sometimes it'll gap. So to counter that, what a lot of people do is what they call the invisible decrease. If you're doing an invisible decrease, you just want to go through these first loops, the front loops, instead of the whole stitch. So you're coming out right in the middle of the V. Yarn over, pull through the other, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 stitches. And it's known as the invisible decrease because even if there is a pull or a gap, the back loops are still flat to fill it in, which makes it much, much harder to spot. So again, we do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, depending on your preference, whether you want to do the invisible decrease or the regular decrease, you'll either go through both or just one loop of your first stitch, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on the hook, go through the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, so you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. And then again, 4, 4, and yarn over, pull through, the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and over, so all 3. So stitching 2 together, also called it's either referred to as a decrease or stitch 2 together, depending on how the pattern decides to write it. We're going to call it a decrease for simplest terms. 4, and a decrease. Love living downtown. Okay. So each end of our round, ending on a decrease. Now the last row we did before for an increase was just 1 single crochet around. So we want to do the same thing on this end. We're going to do 1 single crochet around. So our next round, again, we are mirroring what we did on the top. So the round before that single crochet round on the top was 3 and an increase. That means the row after that single crochet coming down will be 3 and a decrease. Again, just mirroring, doing the opposite of what we did up top. So there's 1, and we mark it. 2, 3, and decrease. Whichever way you went with your previous round, go with this one, keep it symmetrical. Invisible or regular. 2 and 3 and a decrease. All the way around, ending on a decrease. Our next round will be 1 single crochet around again. Okay, and we're at the end of our single crochet round. Now, as you may recall from doing the top, when we were increasing, we didn't do any single crochets between those first 2 increase rounds, and we're down to those last in our decreasing, which means this is going to get small fast, which means we should pause here and start to stuff our ball. So you want to stuff it, I mean, it depends on how tightly stuffed you want it, obviously, but while you're still working, you want to not stuff it quite all the way. You want to leave a little gap here so that it's just out of your way while you're working and you don't get it caught in your work while you're doing your last couple of rounds. But you want to put a little in there because it'll be harder to put in your, you'll notice when you're doing your end bits, it'll be harder to get it in there once you've decreased farther. Now, next round, we're going to do 2 single crochet and then a decrease. One, two, and a decrease. One and two and a decrease. Okay, and we end on the decrease. And again, mirroring the top, a round before 2 and an increase was 1 and an increase, which means our round after 2 and a decrease will be 1 and a decrease. See how that works? Exact mirrored opposite. So 1, which we mark because it's our first one. And immediately decrease. And 1. And decrease. Decrease on that round. As you can see, this hole you have to work with for stuffing is getting pretty small, but stick some more in there if it's not full to your liking yet. Fill in this little space, the space you just created. Now, just like we increased all the way around on row 2, on our second to last row, we are decreasing all the way around. Put the first 2 together and mark. Next 2 together. Okay. Now, you can make sure that your ball is the firmness you want it at. If you want to add any more stuffing, you might have to kind of shove it in through that little space with the end of your hook, kind of, because there's really not a lot of room in there. But once you're sure you're as good and filled and firm as you need, take the marker out, go through, because you're going to go through that last stitch. And go through that stitch, and you're going to go through the stitch directly across from it. Gonna yarn over and pull through both stitches and just slip right through that. And then cut our yarn, tie off. You'll notice that it's not quite as flat there as your top, and your top's nice and flat. Your bottom's got kind of a point to it. Take your darning needle, and put your needle through on the side that your knot's on, and bring it to the opposite side and pull through. It kind of pulls that point down, rounds off your bottom, making your ball nice and round. You can weave the end through a few times to make sure that it's in good and firm. It's not going anywhere. And then cut it. And you're done. Now you know how to crochet a ball if for any reason you ever wanted to. I like to throw those little bell ball toys in there they make for cats, because I mean the cats love the yarn, and then you add the bell, they go nuts for it. Maybe even sprinkle a little bit of catnip. And it's a great way to use up scrap yarn if you just want to make some stress balls, make some balls for the cats, throw some squeakers in there, make them for the dogs. However you want to do it, it is a great scrap eater project. Love it. You know, fill them with some dried lentils instead of polyfill, and you got a hacky sack. You know, okay, I might be dating myself with that one. Kids today don't really use hacky sacks, but they were big when I was in school. Okay? I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I also hope that you'll join me next week when I show you how to get those nice clean edges while doing straight rows of single crochet in a straight up scarf tutorial. Remember, new videos drop every Friday. I try to get shorts out every Monday if I can, and if you just hit that little subscribe button and the bell icon, you'll get notifications every time I post. So please, if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and join me next week while we continue our beginner crochet journey.